Before we start this video, a large thank you to Johan, Zhu, Wei, Stefan, Lucas, AJ, Rumo, a name I unfortunately cannot pronounce. Thank you for support my friend, Jeff P, Adrian, and Corey for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And a tremendous thank you to Slim Shaggy on Patreon for their immense support to this channel and the series. You are greatly appreciated, my friend. Hello guys, today we're going to finish polishing our locomotion a little bit more. So, I got this guy standing on a pillar here now, and if I were to take a step off here, you're going to see that he doesn't really do what we want him to do. He follows fine, doesn't get caught on the edges or anything, that's great. So I'm just going to take a step off, but we kind of just plummet and stay in our idle animation. We don't want that, so we're going to utilize some logic we had before, but make it infinitely better. So I'm going to start by actually taking a peek over on the animator. I'm just going to drag my scene tab back here so it's on the way. Let's go and take a look at our empty state, and let's take a look at our falling and landing animations. So you can see here we have a land and a fall, and the fall actually connects from the jump. So you can see if you're not grounded here, it actually says if is in air. We're going to delete that because that's not the name we use. We use is grounded. So find your is in air and delete it if you have that variable on your animator. Just remove it entirely. And instead, we're going to add a parameter, a bool, for is grounded to keep our naming conventions the same. So if we're not grounded, we're going to translate into this falling animation. We're going to keep has exit time to true, so it finishes the jumping animation first. Now, so on our landing animation here, I'm just going to drag that above here, and you can see that it actually goes back to the empty, but we're going to make a transition from the empty to the falling animation. And we're going to set it so we have to be is grounded is equal to false. We're going to untick has exit time because we want it to happen instantly, but not too instantly. So we're going to make a float called is in air timer because you don't want to play the falling animation if you're just falling off a tiny little step. So we're going to make the is in air timer value greater than, I'm going to say 0.1 to test it out, or 0.2. So if that's true, we're going to go right into the falling animation. Now, we actually got to set this up in our project so the is in air timer is being fed into the animator from our scripts. So I'm just going to organize these in a nice manner here so I can see it. I'm going to make a transition from falling to land. Going to make it so is grounded has to be true. I'm going to uncheck has exit time. You want that to be instant. And I'm going to make the transition duration 0.1 so it blends a little bit. You just want to go down here to your preview here. I'll make it a bit bigger so you can see. Make sure this preview kind of clicks nice. So depending on your animations, you may want to play with the values, but you want to make sure that the landing, or the falling rather, into the land looks nice. All right, so I'm going to go over to my player locomotion manager script. Going to go to the character locomotion manager from there. And then under handle ground check right here, you can see right below here, I'm just going to conveniently say character.animator.setFloat is in air timer to the value of the is in air timer. And that will feed the timer over to our animator, and then it will know when to play that animation. So that should work fine now. Let's go and see where this is grounded is being called from. Actually, I know it's on update. So likewise, right up here on the update function, this is on the character locomotion manager. We're going to say character.animator.set bool is grounded is equal to character dot is grounded. And at the end of this video, we're going to delete anything that has to do with is in air. That's just some remnants of old code. This is a lot nicer now and a lot neater and a lot less code. So now if I go into the game here and press play, I got this guy on this giant, he's way up in the air in this little cube from this giant drop. So if I were to walk off the edge now, it should play the falling animation, yep, and then boom, it plays the landing animation. That looks so much better, so much nicer. And since the character controller has been implemented too, no more getting stuck in random places, or not stuck, stuttering I should say. So it just kind of goes up and down and slopes nicely, and it just feels a lot better. I like the feel of the controller. It's a lot more responsive, at least for what we have in this project. The rigid body has its place for sure. Next, go to the player camera handler, and you're gonna notice that when you fall in the air, the camera kind of doesn't keep up with us. So first off, this should be follow speed times time.delta time, not time.delta time times follow speed. I messed that up. Had that backwards. Was probably typing it too fast. And basically what this is going to do is the lower the value right now on this, the faster the camera will snap to the player, okay? So because we're falling so quickly in the air, we want to keep that value pretty low. And when we're on the ground, we want to keep a little bit higher so the camera kind of follows you, but it looks like you're kind of outpacing the camera when you do certain actions, which gives the game more of an action-y feel. So if we're not aiming, I'm going to make a check in here for is grounded and if is not grounded. So if we are grounded, we can keep that the same. This follow speed stays the same. I'm actually going to change the name of this variable though from follow speed to grounded follow speed, or grounded smooth time would be an appropriate name. But if you want to keep it called grounded follow speed, that's a bit more clear in my opinion than the variable name. That's cool too. So I'm going to copy and paste this logic and put it down here in the else, but I'm going to change grounded follow speed to aerial follow speed, and then I'm going to make that variable right now up top. So let's go up to where we have the follow speed here, grounded follow speed, copy it, paste it, replace the word grounded with aerial, and this is now the speed that the camera will follow your player if you are not grounded. Again, best to keep this one low. I'm going to show you some examples in the project though, so you can really understand what's happening. The lower this value, basically, the faster the camera adjusts itself to the follow position of the target, so the faster it smooths itself out. The higher the value, the slower it is. And that's good for doing certain actions like swinging a weapon or sprinting, because it makes the game look more impactful, because the camera takes a moment to catch up to the player's actions, and it just makes it look more actiony. So now, if I jump from this peak now with my follow speed on, I think it's 1, you can see the camera sticks right to me, okay? So let's try cranking the aerial follow speed up to, say, what if we do like 20? You'll notice now it's not going to stick exactly to me. Check this out. So let's start the game again and jump off. So now it's at 20, and you can see there's a bit of a delay. So my player almost gets a little bit of distance from the camera. Looks pretty cool. But now to really sell home the point, I'm just going to crank it up to, say, 200 just to show you the extreme difference, because it's important that you understand this and play around these values to get a feel for your game. But you can see that the camera cannot keep up with the player at all, and it snaps back to a lower value when we're grounded. So I'm going to keep the aerial follow speed value at about, I'm going to say 10, and the grounded follow speed can be 20 or 30. Again, just feel it out. So here it is in the aerial speed at 10. So I get a bit of distance from the camera, and then it snaps back me to the ground. That looks good. So this feels a lot better. Now, sprinting is probably broken for you if you haven't taken the time to restore it since the last update. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm sure a lot of you probably just went ahead and did it yourselves. Not too hard. But I'm going to do that and make sure the stamina is deducted properly and make sure sprinting is only enabled at certain times, etc., etc. So let's just go ahead and fix that. So if you go to the input handler, we don't need to edit anything here. Actually, let's go to the player locomotion manager. And once this player is sprinting, you could change this to if input handler dot sprint flag, because we used to use the sprint flag for something a long time ago. But since then, we've removed it, and it's no longer serving a purpose, really. You don't need to remove it, but we can just say if player dot is sprinting. And on the input handler, we can change sprinting, or sprint flag rather, to is sprinting is true. So let's do that instead. Let's just change this entirely. Go to where it says handle role input. And where it says sprint flag, just paste player dot is sprinting instead. And what we're going to do is just delete the sprint flag entirely. Like I said, it doesn't serve a purpose anymore. You don't need to. You can just use the sprint flag to change the sprinting to true, but it doesn't serve a purpose right now, so I'm just going to remove it. There's no point in having code that isn't necessary. So for the sake of being a bit cleaner, we're going to move that. And wherever you see sprint flag to previously, just say player.is sprinting. That's it. So replace sprint flag with player.is sprinting, wherever you find it. So here under handle role input on the input manager, going to replace it. Player.is sprinting is equal to false, or player.is sprinting is equal to true. And paste that there and there. Whoops, accidentally pasted it twice on that one, so I'll just delete that. And then I am going to save that. All right. Now let's see if this gives us any more errors. Just going to save and minimize it now. Probably get a couple. Yes, we do. So let's see. Okay, this is over on the player locomotion manager. That's what I just edited to give a demonstration. That was originally player.issprinting. So let's save that and remove player sprinting is equal to true. And then back over here again. Right. So sprint flag, change that to player is sprinting is equal to true. All right, so now that will work, but we still have some work to do if we want to make sure it doesn't keep sprinting indefinitely. And you want to, first off, also deduct stamina, because as you can see here now, I'm sprinting and it's not costing me anything. So let's go on not press play. Let's make sure first we're checking for our movement is over 5. So if we're sprinting and our input move amount is over 0.5, then we move at a sprint speed. Otherwise, you can basically activate sprinting while not moving. And then we're going to say player stats manager dot deduct stamina sprint stamina cost. But this is a problem because this is doing this every single frame. The higher your frame rate, as you can see, the faster your stamina will plummet to 0. So because of that, you want to make sure it's frame independent and it's happening at a game tick. So let's go to where we deduct our stamina and take a look here. There's several hundred ways you can do this. I'm just going to make a function specifically for the player that will basically deduct stamina from sprinting. So I'm just going to copy and paste deduct stamina on the player stats manager. And I'm going to say deduct stamina while sprinting. I'm just going to type it out manually, actually. We can pass, again, a float for the stamina to deduct because it's going to basically work the exact same way, with the difference being that this function is going to be called every frame while you are sprinting. So what do we need here? Well, we need a timer that's going to basically keep track of every millisecond or second that's passed in the game. Let's copy the logic from the original, though, first and paste it in here, just so it's all there, because we still need to deduct the stamina, but we're going to do just one thing a bit differently. We're going to do it in increments of time while we're sprinting. So we can make a timer here, but I'm actually just going to instead store a private variable on this script, because the player is the only person that's going to be keeping track of deducting stamina while sprinting. So we can put it here. So private float, and I'm just going to call this sprints or sprinting timer. And that's going to be initialized at 0, because if it's over 0, then we're deducting some stamina. And then down here in the deduct sprinting stamina, I'm going to simply say if player dot is sprinting, and then we know our timer needs to go up. So then we're going to say, okay, if we are sprinting, our sprinting timer is equal to the sprinting timer plus time dot delta time. That means every second we increment 1 on our sprinting timer. Okay. And then we're going to say if our sprinting timer is higher than 0.1 f, so every 10th of a second, we can deduct some stamina cost. I'm going to say current stamina equals current stamina minus stamina to deduct. And that's it. Well, not quite. Then we set our stamina bar dot set current stamina, so we're updating our stamina every time we lose some. Else, if we are not sprinting, then the sprinting timer should always be at 0. Okay, so let's save that. And let's go over here to the player locomotion manager. Instead of saying deduct stamina, we say deduct sprinting stamina. Let's save that. And before we go, let's make sure we reset our sprinting timer every time we go over 0.1 f, or else you have the same problems before. So every time we hit 1/10 of a second, reset our timer to 0, and then deduct some stamina. And then that process repeats while you're sprinting indefinitely. All right, that does look good. Let's save that and let's pop into the game here in a sec and try it out. First, though, on regenerate stamina, make sure you say if player dot is interacting or the player is sprinting, we don't regenerate our stamina. Otherwise, you'll begin to regenerate stamina while sprinting, and we don't want that. Very simple, very straightforward. Just make a note here. Do not regenerate stamina while you are performing an action or while you are sprinting. Okay, so now we should be able to test this in game, and it should be fine. Go into the game, sprint, or roll rather. Yeah, we lose some stamina, and I sprint. You can see my stamina is going down, and it is not regenerating while we are performing action or sprinting. Okay, that looks good. Very good. Now, jumping, or is in air timer, sorry. Just get rid of that on the character manager, the bool for is in air. And then wherever you get an error, just delete it, because the is in air variable is no longer necessary. Don't even know why we had that, to be honest with you. So right here for if is in air and late update, you can actually delete this whole thing, because if you remember, we're actually passing the is in air timer now from the character manager's update function. So just delete that entirely. Save that, and I think one more. Yes. So right here, if is in air should be if is not grounded. This is under handle hold LB input. And save that, and you should now be good to go. All right, guys, that feels a whole lot better. So the locomotion, in my opinion, now is a lot better for the project's use case, and it just feels a lot nicer. So we have a few more things we're going to do coming up. That's enough for the polish on locomotion, though. That's where it needs to be right now. So we also have some requests. The next few videos will be item weight and overburden systems. So if you have too much weight on you, you will fat roll, or if you have so much, you'll just be forced to walk everywhere. And we also have fall animation, or fall damage and death, sorry. So basically you take X damage over X period of time while falling. We can do some kill boxes too, so if you fall in an out of bounds area, that will just instantly kill you. And then we also have animation canceling. So basically at the end of certain animations, you're allowed to do actions like rolling, etc., etc., etc. Those are the topics coming up. At this point, though, again, I would like to take, or rather give the floor to you guys to basically suggest anything that you want to see, because after I've burned through all of your suggestions, I'm just going to basically make a makeshift little level and then go through and play the whole level, kill some enemies, kill a boss, and then level up and just kind of show where the project is at, basically. And then we could just do polishing videos indefinitely, and I'll be taking requests and stuff. and we'll get around to doing multiplayer. Oh, almost forgot to. I'm going to cover ladders and elevators. That is also on the list. So we have a few weeks of videos to get through before we start going into the multiplayer aspect of it. As usual, guys, if you made it this far, please be sure to drop a like, leave a comment. It does genuinely help out the series so much. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out the new series because we're starting multiplayer on that on day 1. So if you want to use your brain and kind of take what you learn from there and put it into the Dark Souls Unity series, it won't be that complicated. You'll have to do some refactoring, but it's also a good chance to learn some stuff. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one.